is here from outside Austin? Do we have anybody here in this room right now? Okay, sweet, all right. Well, I'm gonna give you a brief geography lesson here on the Austin area. And you can actually, I don't know if I can do this two-handed now. You can actually see Austin from space. I'm just gonna point it out. But you see this big brown ridge where it meets the big green ridge? It's literally the east meets the west here in Austin. And I-35 runs down this shelf, and there's a river here, the Colorado River cuts through. And if I could zoom it in, you'd be even more impressed. I bring that up to bring up, yeah, a weatherman? I'm like the election results. And I want to say, if you haven't walked to the top of this building, it's one of my favorite buildings in Austin. Walk the stairs all the way to the roof and look east, and you'll be looking in that green direction. And then look west, look that way. And you can literally see, you'll see these mountains, these hills, that direction. And I bring that up because I really feel like the first part of my career was app development. Very much web focused, building features, working at startups. And here in the later half, it's been more on the platform side. And I've been at Heroku. And I think the thing that still energizes me is the combination of that app developer mindset and that platform engineering and that mixture and the compromises and the trade-offs. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. And so the first thing I want to do is tell a story. Picture this. You have been headhunted by a stealth startup in Austin, Texas. You're going to be their first CTO. Even after signing several NDAs, you really don't know what they do. You know they work on vehicles. And they offer free executive housing. So you are jazzed. Your last job is chaotic. You're coming from custom CI/CD for every app. You're coming from chaos and snowflakes. You're coming from reinventing the wheel on every tool. So you've got this great mindset. You're gonna do things differently. You're gonna fix it all here, the new job. You're gonna dog food everything from the start. GitOps, everything as code. Have you seen this? EAAC is a real acronym. Everything as code, it all goes through Git. And the CEO has promised, you don't have to worry about the apps. You are just gonna focus on that platform. And you're gonna make the most cutting edge Kubernetes platform with modern standards. So you pack up, you got your bags, you get on this bullet, whatever it is, and you arrive to some disappointment. It turns out the vehicles are trailers. Your CEO is the heir to a trailer empire, but they've cashed in their inheritance to fund an autonomous, self-driving trailer startup. So here we are. The executive housing is free, and it does have Wi-Fi, but it's unfortunately a prototype trailer here in the yard. And there is no development team. It's the CEO, and he's got cursor, right? All that aside, you're gonna make the best of it. You're here, there's no income tax, you made it, and you decide to suckle up and make the best platform that any autonomous trailer startup has ever made. And first order of business, you gotta get that wait list up. The CEO is on you day one. So you're building a cluster, and you define a CRD, and so you're gonna define a simple resource definition that allows your CEO and any future developers to launch applications into your cluster without a lot of thought. And so this is where you kind of have your platform engineering hat on, and you're thinking about fleets of apps, and you're thinking about scalability. And mostly though, from a developer perspective, I want to think about how simple I can make this. What don't I have to specify? What can I infer based on the Git repo? Can I just put this in a Git repo and get that to my cluster? That is your goal, and that's where you're headed. So You tell your CEO, hey, day one, been a lot of work. Actually, they built an IDP in 60 minutes, if anybody was in there. So you've done the same thing. You built your internal developer platform. You've launched it. You tell your CEO, put this YAML file in your Git repo, and you are on top of the world. He can't believe it. You've launched the wait list. It's live. It's out there. The emojis and reactions rain down from Slack heaven. And you go to bed happy. Like, it doesn't feel good to like have a problem, someone come to you with a need, and you deliver. And so that's just such a great feeling, great start to this new job. You come in the next day, you're energized. I need to monitor this thing, right? I want to be watching the health of our cluster. And so you've got plans for a whole dashboard, but to start, we'll keep it really simple. Let's just have a simple web app that serves the health checks back. And so you can start looking at that and making sure our waitlist is up, everything's going well. And this is where I think there's really an opportunity, and if you haven't done a lot of app development and you've been mostly on the platform side, I think it's helpful to maybe talk more directly and realize you are an app developer. You are going to launch something in your cluster. I think almost every team I come to, maybe you all have had a similar experience, there's kind of a shadow infrastructure, there's a shadow pipeline, there's a shadow CD. Usually it's like maybe bootstrap to get the whole thing going, but you end up with just sort of this flood of different pipelines. And so I think the earlier you can say, no, I'm going to use the platform that I'm building, like this, just immediately start to increase your velocity. And you get out of that mindset of like, I'm building something for my customers. I'm also solving my problem today. I need to launch this app today. But there's a big difference. One big difference here from the waitlist app, and that is we need auth, right? We don't want to be exposing these health endpoints to the world. And so we're going to go back into our IDP. We're going to crack open our CRD. We're going to find, we have an identity provider. We've got an OAuth. And we're just going to be able to proxy requests that come through our identity provider and then back to our requests. So again, we want that really simple. I'm going to add this to my code. We want to, on the root path, just make sure we're authenticating with our identified identity provider. Again, so you feel like a good day. You've shipped more code, you go to bed satisfied, and unfortunately, you wake up to a midnight phone call. The CEO is frantic. You hadn't heard from him yesterday, but he's been doing a press tour about this wait list. He can't wait to tell the world about this wait list. However, someone has discovered there is no authentication. Anyone can see who's signed up for that wait list. Apparently, someone didn't review the code right before they checked it in. So, you're in bed, you pull out your phone, and you put your app developer hat back on. And you say, I've solved this problem. This is a platform problem. I've solved this problem. I just need to add auth. And so you can hook up your proxy. You've already built it. You just add a path. You can commit that, go to sleep, and your Git everything, the infrastructure as everything, is going to roll this change out onto the platform. Hooray, CEO is static again, right? You've saved the day again. You've come in, you've seen a crisis, and you've fixed it. And so I think that example, and I think auth is an interesting example, and there are several others of things that so often we bake straight into our applications, into our containers, into our services. But I think there's really a possibility not just to protect people from doing bad things, but to actually level them up, give them more modular building blocks, like something like auth. And so the CEO is so happy. He comes back, and you've got a new mandate. Every URL must have auth. New company mandate, right? Every URL must have auth. And so you start to think about how are you going to solve this problem. And now I'm going to talk about OPA a little bit. And I don't know if you all have used Open Policy Agent, but it's almost 10 years old. It's just like a little bit, I think, younger than Kubernetes itself. And essentially the idea is that you can define policies separate from any kind of model or object. It's a completely generic policy model. And so you kind of give it a couple things when you want it to evaluate. You give it the data and you give it the policy. And so this is an example of a policy that we are going to write to roll out for these new CEO wishes. And so we're seeing here, this is called Rego. And actually, I think the main criticism I've heard, there are others, about OPA, though, is this programming language, Rego. But it's not too hard. This is obviously the simplest function. We're going to deny any records that contain this message, and that is if the input is a trailer app and the input spec is not set, then we will set the message that the spec is required. So if this is true, we set the message and we return a deny. And so if we submit something like that first version, we're going to get back a deny array, and you get an array of all the rules that did not pass those messages that come back. And so we're going to commit this to our pipeline. We're going to add this requirement. But when I think about accelerating developers, I think telling people stopping deploys, sending a failure message is good. Like, you've stopped me from doing something bad. That is good. What's better is suggesting the change, right? So maybe this message, it doesn't just say deny. Maybe it tells you exactly what the options are here. I think the best, though, is when you just fix it for me, right? And so, sorry, this is what I was trying to show here. One of OPA's features and policy features in general, Kubernetes has a mutating controller, and so you can actually change the objects as they come in. You can validate them and change them. And so in this case, I don't want you just to tell me that I don't have auth. If I haven't said anything about auth, just put it on there. Just make the root domain protected, and that way, that's something, not just from our developers' perspective, but as a platform engineers, it's like, that's just one less thing for us to worry about. We're going to throw something out into the public web. So I think that's another opportunity there of just do the thing for me, do the right thing. And now we can loop back. So I built my platform and defined my auth, but now auth is default, right? I'm doing that for everybody. So I can come back through, remove these. And so I'm working on this loop, this feedback loop of building the platform as you're running the platform, of putting the tracks down in front of you. And I think, I had this image of like a drive shaft and like a semi-truck or some long car, and you have these junctions, and each junction you're sort of like losing power as it gets to the wheels. And I think there's so much opportunity when you are the one building the platform and launching the apps. You just have full power. You don't have any translation. You're not having meetings. You can just throw these things in and move them on. So I think that mentality of being able to switch from platform to app developer and back and forth really accelerates how the platform works and how you solve their problems. And so we have this self-perpetuating machine. It's only the two of you. It's only you and the CEO. But you're solving things in this loop. You're launching them, you're fixing them, you're building them into the platform, and then the next thing you launch builds on top of those. So it's progressively, exponentially building up. Let me give you another example. Deprecations. So I think it's funny. I feel like people have two experiences with their platform. I'm curious to hear from y'all, but it's like some people really love it. It like solves the problem, makes it easy, and some people hate theirs, and it like makes everything hard. And it's something I've been thinking about, like why you have this strong reaction. It's definitely like a feature set. It's usability. But I think fundamentally, as a platform, you can't break things. Like the worst thing you can do is, my thing was working yesterday, and today it's not working. And so like as a platform user, as an app developer using a platform, I can't use a platform that operates that way, right? But as a platform engineer, sometimes you have to break things. Sometimes the platform needs a change. Sometimes you need their attention. And so I think one of the things you can do with OPA or any other policy agent is you don't have to just deny. There's a few different approaches. You can log, if you run into a situation that a rule fails, you can log it, right? So you can just collect metrics. Who's still using, in this scenario, let's say we had a CDN feature we were using, it was part of our IDP, we put it into our platform. Turns out, it didn't work, we didn't like it, people were using something else, so we want to pull it back out. Happens a lot. Well, these people are using it, so how do we get their attention? How do we not break their app? How do we convince them this change? And so, what you can do is, in your warning, in your message, in your failure actually, in your deny here, you can say, hey, I have an extra attribute now, and it has to be this value. So now I'm saying, CDN isn't deprecated, however, I'm gonna let you keep using it if you set this attribute, end of life equals January, whatever. And obviously this is a little bit of a contrived example, but I think the advantage that you have in using policy to help with your deprecations is that you don't have to break everything all at once. And anybody who's running a platform knows that kind of temporary downtime, instead of doing a full shutdown, if you can turn off the service for an hour and then turn it back on, the people who need it are gonna figure out pretty quick. And so that's the advantage here of getting people, when they're deploying, if you can reject it and say, hey, this is going away, you still got time. And so I think something like this between we just block it, we break it, is really huge. I think helps people, gives people trust in the platform. And so this is what it could look like, right? And again, these are custom resources, so all these attributes could be more particular to your use case. So, I think kind of summarizing where I've come from, that mix of being able to switch between what is good for the platform and what is good for the user, I think is just so valuable. And I really see and get excited about, and I've talked to some of you about where the platform and app development intersects and some of these new tools that are using the new primitives in Kubernetes and the new processes. I think that is where the direction is going, and I'm really excited. And so I think the next place I see sort of these developer platforms is even further lowering the bar for app developers to use these Kubernetes fundamentals. And just like we don't care about ports and services, I think they're not going to care about those things. But when they do leverage them, they're going to really see the value in them. So I do work at Heroku. I have 25 Lego minifigs sitting on my dresser in Bastrop, Texas at home. I forgot them this morning. If you email me your address, I will put one in the mail to you. I'm so sorry I forgot them. I'm happy to do it. It's just Ambrose at Heroku or at Salesforce. And the short pitch for Heroku is that we've been building a developer platform for 15 years, 20 years. And so we have a lot of experience. And I think what I like talking about people here are like the cutting edge things, pushing the art. But the reality is, I know a lot of you also do support for like configuring Helm charts and connecting to your database and environment bars. So that boring platform and stuff, give that to Heroku. Let us do that. We can support your customers. You do the cool stuff. And so that's kind of the pitch. I really appreciate y'all's time, and thank you so much.